Have you ever wondered why so many college students perform poorly on tests and tasks? Having helped learning assistance professionals and peer staff conduct thousands of test recitations, it's clear that students know the content, meaning they recognize the words on their tests. However, when it comes to the moment of truth, where they must produce an answer, students find themselves stuck or unable to produce a sufficient response. When this happens, it's a clear sign that the thinking skills students use while studying do not match the inherent cognitive skills that are being assessed. Solving this dilemma requires us to understand how academic material is organized and to dissect content from thinking skills from the academic products they produce. We will use the Think Well, Learn Well diagram to guide us through this process. Academic material is organized around outcomes, and outcomes can only be produced by mixing the proper cognitive skills with the correct content. While content is narrowly focused, outcomes cover broad spans of content. So the material covered in a class and in text for weeks may be necessary for producing a single course outcome. The critical knowledge point you must know is that the thinking skills students use with content determines the knowledge products they produce. Course learning outcomes, objectives, or course goals are usually included near the beginning of a course syllabus. Learning outcomes typically include an action verb such as explain, analyze, describe, or evaluate that is paired with course content. These action verbs provide critical clues about the modes of thinking that are needed to produce the outcomes. The first step is to use the second column of the Think Well, Learn Well diagram, the thinking skills column, to match the level of thinking expressed in the learning outcome. Each row of the diagram represents a specific type of interaction and a precise set of cognitive skills. The key meta question you want to train students to constantly ask is, what type of cognitive activity is the outcome signaling? There are numerous variations and synonyms of these 6 skills represented by each row of the diagram. We must help students match the thinking skills expressed in their outcomes to one of these rows. For example, let's look at content from a history course written as 2 different outcomes. First, notice that the content doesn't change, even though the outcomes or knowledge products change. Each outcome is based upon the same content, origins of historical arguments. However, they require students to use very different thinking skills on the content. The change in the modes of thinking students use will cause the content to be represented differently in their minds, which will produce very different knowledge products. Using the Think Well, Learn Well diagram, we see that the words construct original in the first outcome signal us that the professor wants students to use the creating thinking skill, located at the bottom row, middle column of the Think Well, Learn Well diagram. Now let's look at the second iteration of the learning outcome on the right side of your screen. Use primary source research material to explain the origins of historical arguments. The word explain signals us that the professor wants students to use their understanding mode of thinking on the content. So, while the content remains the same, the mode of thinking about the content changes. This cognitive modification produces a different type of interaction with the content and results in a qualitatively different knowledge product. So, this means that 2 students who attend class together and study together can end up with very different scores. The student who decoded the course outcomes and activated the correct thinking skills produced the proper knowledge products, while her friend wound up wasting time using the wrong thinking skills. This is the metacognitive benefit that has led researchers to boldly proclaim that students with advanced metacognitive skills will outperform their peers. Now it's your turn to help students decode course outcomes and experience the rich benefits of metacognition. Remember these tips as you move forward. Number 1, underperformance is a signal that students are using improper thinking skill. Number 2, students must think well to learn well and perform well. And number 3, use the Think Well, Learn Well diagram to align students' thinking to their course outcomes.